It's quite a special and existential process to be both the architect and the owner of a house. Having spent 35 years of my life thinking about design, thinking about what is good for other people, and then ultimately what is good for yourself, starts to make you ask some very hard questions about your value system and how it is you're about to design your own home. Hi, I'm Shaun Lockyer of Shaun Lockyer Architects, and I'm sitting at my own home that my wife Julie and I designed for ourselves. What's so important about the brief of this house is that for Julie and I, this was our downsized house. So this was a very different house to the family home of growing up, kids becoming young adults and then moving out of the home. So for us, this was all about this next chapter of our lives where we could maximize the landscaping, really embrace the best qualitative aspects of materiality and light and texture, and then focus on art and experience, which are two things that are really important to us. I think the feeling of being in this house is certainly one of surprise. I think for friends and people that have been through the house, they come through Newstead and they come through the inner city and they experience these sort of mixtures of commercial buildings and shops and warehouses and apartment buildings, and then they turn off a road and all of a sudden they're in this green leafy sanctuary. And that's what is so remarkable about this location, is that it has all the kind of pleasures and convenience of being central but being totally private, being very green and having this exquisite borrowed landscape behind us. Being a relatively small house on a relatively small block of land, one might be forgiven for thinking that it's a really one-dimensional house, but this is a house that just continually surprises. As you'd come through the front door, which is actually relatively hidden already, you come into a very small and compressed space that has this lovely void and skylight above you. As you transition through the middle of the house, there's a small component of the house that's a little bit introverted, characterized by lots of art and a very rich staircase. And then you come into the space that we're sitting in now, which is this beautifully north-facing, quite long pavilion that is open on two sides to garden, which for us is really the heart of this whole place. At the center of any great house, I think, is the kitchen. And in this home, that's no exception. As one comes through the entry, there's this beautiful Alpe Verde green bench top, which is kind of a point in the house where people gather and very much sort of forms the heart of the way that we live. And because it's not a big house, the integration of the kitchen, the seamlessness of the kitchen, how that sort of feels like it's part of the living area without being a utility, was something critically important to us. And to that extent, there's this sort of lovely sense of the cabinetry from the living room sort of flowing into the kitchen and then into the laundry ultimately, and the appliances are then just a natural extension of that. I've personally been dealing with Miele for about 35 years in the projects that we've done, and it's just a natural choice for us. It's timeless, it's robust, it's sustainable, and it just sits beautifully in the background of the architecture, which is something that's really important to us. And that lovely sense of just incremental improvement, incremental development in a family business that's been going 100 years resonates very much with our own design philosophy in the way that we think about the evolution of detail in our buildings and how we execute them for the next home, having learned from the past. When we designed this house, a lot of people asked me about what it's going to look like and what sort of things interest us in terms of kind of the aesthetic of a house. And while clearly that's important to us, the idea of experience is something much more important. And how that sort of manifests in this house is the choice of heavy materials like concrete and stone and the sort of rich textured blockwork is about creating a sense of resilience, a sense of permanence. And then the layering of timber for us was really important, and there were these sort of custom-made boards which introduces this beautiful, character and patina and layering of material. So I think at the heart of it is a very, very functional house. But In the way to making it functional, I think there are a number of elements which are quite playful and slightly serendipitous, which was important for us in terms of the joy of the house. And examples of those are the sculptures that we cast into the concrete walls that reference Le Corbusier's modular man. And for people that know me, I have probably an unhealthy interest and passion for art. And for me, I can't see a house without art. So in the making of this house, about 80% of the art was actually bought specifically for the walls that the art now sits on. And we even integrated those into the technical drawings so that the sense of connection between the art, the architecture, and ultimately the landscape and the way that we experienced all of those things was really only ever envisaged as one experience. I think something that was absolutely critically important about the agenda for this house, but in its full evolution, what is manifest in the house is that sense of making. The builders, M2 Construction, I built 35 houses with, and the carpenters that worked on this job, Barney, Tommy and Robbie, really took this project as a passion project. So there's a real sense of the handmade in here. There are even pieces of timber which actually have slightly sawn edges, which I deliberately didn't get them to sand off, because even the story of making became something more important than just the idea of perfection. In a sense, we kind of aspired to a kind of perfectly imperfect house, so that everything was deliberate, but the sense of making became more important than the sense of something being perfect. And I think it's that sort of character, that sense of transference of energy from people making and loving something to being manifest in the way that we get to enjoy this house now, that really kind of, fills our heart with joy and gives us a sense of real purpose about what we've done.